Hello, fellows. Biden's call for Democratic Summit this December 10th, 11th was a clarion call for all those democratic nations and majority of the world bodies and world countries are maybe partly or fully democratic, accepting some autocratic or despotic nations which do not fall within the umbrella. It's a wider tent of democratic, well-meaning countries which have its legitimate governments through adult franchise and voting rights. Biden has been pushing forward for a cleaner, restored democracy with its high ideals and values, whether it's United States, America, and other European nations they vouch for or they have been the votary of. The call based on Biden's prophetic ideas of views about restoring back democracy to its original statutes with the safeguards for all the human rights upholdings and appropriate punishment for those who dare to violate the human rights principles enshrined in the constitution bodies, whether it's UN Charter, which was unanimously drafted, and all the major countries which became the member nations, they vowed to continue and persist with the ideals enshrined, and Biden carefully chose the invitees, and it was primarily presumed to be anti-Chinese overtures because China is flexing its economic muscles and its political so is far-reaching. Its technological giant leap forward, which is truly intimidating the U.S. Tech giants and the presence of U.S. in the world market and its deplorable dollar diplomacy and its waning superiority or supreme immaculate image of being the world champion of democracy is fast eroding, and Biden, with his inception as the presidential candidate, has promised that he's going to bring back, all those. It's like America first by Trump, but it's like democracy first by Trump. All this popularity rating has been in the decline and it's just enjoyed 40% of the popularity. And within the pandemic and all kinds of world tragic fallouts, there is an in-person summit on the card, and most of the nations they couldn't see eye to eye or to be brought on the table of Joe Biden's generous invites to almost 200 countries, excepting certain Middle East countries, which only included this area, Iraq and Israel. Maybe the plausible explanation of excluding those countries which may enjoy partial or broken or kind of tattered democratic setup with its governments of a handful of people or single party rule. So some of the African countries were also included, which have been notoriously backing some of the despotic rebel leaders like Congo and So he has been successfully, bringing about change in perception that majority of the world nations could be brought to a single fold, with the largest entity of Europe around 29 and 30 countries, and apart from those like in Asian countries like India, Nepal, and Bangladesh and Pakistan. All of these countries were brought to the the message was clearly indicative of that there was a need to not only rein in some of the tech giants like Facebook and Twitter and those giants, because they have taken the whole world's opinion and impressions for a ride for now, because of the sweeping influences and the distortion of the copyright and privacy acts, and the flagrant violation of the breach of the personal data protection. So these tech giants, they have been ruling the roost, they have been calling the shots and world over, and they have had a very dominant effect, and they also created a dominant impact on the psyche or the opinion making or the kind of outlook. And especially I'll talk about Facebook, which is termed as Meta. It has failed in its attempt to combat incendiary messages, and in fact it has contributed and aided to this nefarious act of jeopardizing, vitiating, and image corrosion. And minority has always been targeted, and all the vilification of and they have been despised, and this media giant has spared no stone unturned in being party to the nefarious designs of the government or certain community-based or some of the infringe elements that have taken the mainstream. So there is a greater need to not only control and bring those under the purview of the constitutional statutes, because if they go unchecked and their supremacy is not challenged, first of all, they are big barons, big magnets. They attract people all over the world, and they not only infect or sway the decisions of the large masses, especially when it comes to voting and swinging the influences in favor against the majoritarian rule. So even the largest democratic state like India, which claims to be a champion of democratic ideals, but the indexes show otherwise. And these days there is a large-scale rampant corrosion of those values that India has stood all these years. Even in America, there has been segregation, discrimination, shootings of minority, the protests countrywide, and there have been attempts at maligning, and not only the minorities have suffered in the hands of those majoritarians with their own ideals of white supremacy, and Trump has been really instrumental in furthering those nefarious moves by infringe elements. In fact, there was an attempt at the Capitol Hill to not only invade the House and bring the democracy for a ransom and hold those responsible legislatures on gunpoint. And they're still being, charge sheeted and brought. They're yet to be brought to the justice system. So Biden's move is a positive move in the right direction, because democracy, as far as all the sorts of kinds of governments that we have ever thought of or are cherished as the ideal sort of governments, democracy has proven to be the best so far, because Marxists capitalists and all those have failed to. And the ills of democracy are surfacing these days, because in democracy it's a majoritarian rule, in one sense that if the psyche or the populace can be carried away, and the influence of these tech giants in forming impressions and not only modifying the outlook and spreading propaganda. I mean, like these tools, and the media. It's like today's media barons, and instead of print media, it's all, everything is online. So, barring some of the genuinely journalistic, principled media houses, majority of them have fallen victims of either commercial gains or TRPs. I mean, like people's responses. And so I have been sick of watching these channels and channels, 24-hour broadcasts and televising debates on the media. And most of the debates seem to be puppets. They rarely talk their minds. They don't express the harsh realities. And India's democracy has really taken a beat these days, because minority rights have been consistently and systematically put on hold, or being violated, or they have been threatened to remain as subservient or as second-rate citizens, and their rights are no more legitimately enjoyed by them. In fact, the redressal of the grievances of genuine rights corrosion, there's no freedom of expressions, and index of all of these, which account for the robustness of the successful democracy, has been all-time low. It has been an abyss, because a comedian cannot act. Good journalists don't, get any recognition anymore. And they are being rebuffed or despised, and they're made to feel as if they're inferior to those who are trumpeting the government stances. And the government has been on a back foot for a while, only because large scale demonstrations in India by farmers, by other, like now bankers have joined in India. Like, this is one of the reflections of when you try to crush the popular sovereign state through batons and through their own whims and fancies, and enjoying a thumping majority in the parliament, try to crush the genuine demands or genuine protest of the commoners, there will be a volcano effect, and there will be a domino effect, and you cannot silence the whole of the masses, entire community, simply because you push down the throat some of the draconian laws and bring about ordinances and put behind bars, and you use the government agencies for your personal gains, and it's like a vendetta politics these days. If you don't like the person, send the ED and send the Information Directorate, send the Income Tax Department people, hold them for ridicule, send some of the like hooligans and to indulge in arson and felonies, and then try to keep all those well-meaning people, maybe journalists or lawyers or judges or intellectuals, always under the fear of being completely removed from the society or mainstream, and under permanent fixture of fear and psychosis. So this is not the key strength of democracy. The voting rights that gives each individual, all the masses, to go for a change. You can always make a choice, and probably after 5 years or 6 years, or within the completion of the tenure of the government. So the call or the advice by Joe Biden is well intended, and there is a greater need even further need to strengthen our democracy. There should be world bodies which should, in fact, be a watchdog. We have the watchdog like international justice system. Also we have human rights vigils, but India has already repudiated those agencies, and they always, like in Kashmir, there have been rampant indulgence in violence and selective extrajudicial killings of the innocent people, and the army has been charged with going for an kind of violence that's not at all conceivable in a democratic system where you bring about an ordinance, bring about a law overnight, and then you start imposing emergency-like situations where military rules the roost, and the commoners they're being crushed in the batons. So there is a greater need for living up to the ideals of true democracy through mandate instead of violence and other means extra. So the government, in its bid to stay in power with majority, has resorted to gimmicks, has resorted to politics of the worst kind. And that has threatened the very fabric, and it has left the fabric of the democracy tattered. And there is an urgent need for all the democratic nations to join their hands, to move shoulder to shoulder in unifying, taking a new pledge to uphold the principles, to uphold the values, the mandate for the commoners, and there will always be the commoners' welfare and interest should be paramount, regardless of which party rules, what kind of majoritarian mandate you have received by resorting to some kind of unfair means and the like. In India, election was supposed to be fair, by far fair and without violence, but these days even our election commission is being taken for a ride, and they feel intimidated because the supreme authority, the apex body, and the judiciary is also not at liberty to bring about or promulgate laws, because legislators always intervene and they don't allow the judges to come up with the right kind of decisions or right kind of moves, because seeing the populist measures, they're always countermanded, or some of the judges, they have been tainted and they have been offered lucrative posts simply to stay silent. So there could be a party to the nefarious moves by the majoritarian government, and that's what further bring about the death nail to the democratic coffin. So Joe Biden's, I salute the man, who has been successfully pushing forward his agenda for bringing about world parity, and in fact he has been in consultation with even Chinese and those Russians, and they have had summit meetings each. And China has, since being in its own supreme power and only falling short of being the second most powerful nation on earth, with one party rule, and it has been has its own track record of large scale human rights violation, like killing of Uyghurs and not safeguarding interests of the minorities, and going all out for embargoes after embargoes, and going, expansionist policy of having, and and coupled with the giant sway of these techies, tech giants with masses, huge hopping profit-making motives. These media giants or tech giants, they have been further you know, violating the basic principles, and they need to be controlled by the governments, by the world bodies, and they shouldn't be given an unchecked powers, because if they bring the whole world to a grinding halt somehow or the other, because they hold the basic data of each individual users, and the users are like in billion now. Meta worth and meta users like 2 billion, 3 billion plus. Like a quarter of, more than a quarter of the world is user, and they have an access to not only your personal, likes, dislikes, or virtues, your preferences, your affiliations, and they, in fact, abuse those data to not only for marketing or monetizing those things through other subsidiary companies, but they also influence the government in making decisions in their favor, and they evade the taxes and they earn billions. And I mean, I've heard twice Biden saying that these giants are escapist, and they have tax havens, and if they are made to pay through their nose, I mean through the taxes, that could be in billion. They simply try to pack their business from the country and move to the other country where they they go scot-free, in fact. So the future is going to be ruled by not only these tech giants, but also technology will be tied up to our way of life. And in fact, our life will be like internet life, and everything will be directly, indirectly, voluntarily, involuntarily tied to these tech giants, their technology, and somehow the government will have to have a say in while taking decisions about the future welfare of the commoners and safeguarding those struggling, starving people, millions with. The spending has proved this even more, because we see that people are dying. Half of the world is not vaccinated. They don't have even access to these, and then we have booster doses coming for those who are fill-in ones, and there is it used to be a vaccine diplomacy, then vaccine passport. Now it's like vaccination is the biggest sort of discrimination against the larger masses, the world populations. So there has to be an equitable distribution of the resources, whether it's vaccine or whether it's a food. There have to be programs which could bridge this gap of haves and have-nots, and there should be a plan of action where the world bodies, including UN and the leading nations of the world, which are so-called or probably truly democratic nations, to come up with the idea of world government, a sort of world government where technologically we're interlinked and we become a real votary and beneficiary both of this technological advancement and all the fruits that the technology has brought to us in our daily lives. So let's have access to free food, free water, free homes, free education, and free, kind of all the basic human resources that we utterly need, we badly need, and all of us cannot move to Mars, as Elon Musk has promised that part of the civilization is it's going to be a multi-planetary race where the Earth won't remain the only planet to live. In fact, it's getting inhospitable day by day. So we must save the Earth. But going to the Mars altogether en masse, that's not a solution, but at least a viable solution for the next 100 years. So let's hope for the betterment, the comeback, the rebooting our democracy. It's called the rebooting our democracy. democratic world, and let's hope that those which are yet to be democratic, they also live up to the ideals of the democratic principles in action, whether they are autocratic, whether they are despotic, whether one-party system, whatever form of governments they are doing fine with. Best of luck to the world body and to the right move that Biden has taken, and the world body is going to see in person in the coming year with lots of promises to be fulfilled. Thank you.